We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.
Welcome, everybody, to the Magic of Metabolic Health podcast, episode 28, where optimized metabolic health is our goal, and we are here to get you there. My name is Amelia Wood, and I am a food-first personal trainer and metabolic health coach. Dr. Fumi is out of the office today. However, we have a fabulous guest, Mr. Greg Bennick. Hi, Greg.
Hello. How are you?
Fabulous. So excited for you to be here and talk all the things, all the fun metabolic things, which we haven't really ever talked about. Longtime friendship, and we were usually talking about punk rock.
Like for decades.
For decades, yeah. Which I'm sure we'll talk about today because I am wearing a punk rock shirt and I'm not afraid to show it. If you guys haven't heard of Zagoda, you should check them out. I didn't tell Will I was doing that. It was totally just, I didn't have another shirt, you know. Perfect timing with Mr. Greg Bennick. So before we get started, and Greg, I don't know how much you've heard about our show or seen episodes or whatever, but here at the Magic of Metabolic Health, we really focus on building a village. We want to build a culture that supports every part of who we are. You know, we release guilt, we release shame, and this quest for perfection in our health. And just help people understand their why. Like, why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to transform? And really develop self-efficacy. Because so often it's hard for us to do hard things because we think, well, I haven't succeeded in this before, so how am I supposed to succeed in now? And as a personal trainer, I focus a lot on self-efficacy, whether, you know, you broke the world record of juggling at some point in your life, and now you want to work out 3 days a week. It's all relative. Like, those strengths can help us in achieving optimal metabolic health. So that's kind of our vibe here. We have casual dialogue and we laugh and joke a lot. And we just want to make sure that people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves so we can grow and build and transform together. So I know you are along the same lines mentally and emotionally and socially. You can talk all about that in a few minutes. So
awesome.
Thanks again for being here.
Of course. And I love what you said about just now about transformation, like carrying what we've done and who we've been and what we've known in the past into that transformation, and then having that be something that helps us along, pushes us along, inspires us. Because all too often people talk about transformation as if what was before was bad and what is next is different and good, without thinking that what came before gave us information, gave us fuel, gave us energy and inspiration, but also like valuable information that we should take with us even as we shift and change. Because sometimes a little shift or a little change could be the transformation that we need. It doesn't mean we have to give up on the past. So I like that a lot. That's a great perspective.
Yeah. You know, it's all relative. It's all relative. Everything we do and say, think, believe. And I want to make sure that people get a little introduction about who you are. So I'm going to read your bio, which I love. So listen up, you guys. Greg Bennick has been vegan for 35 years, since before the world knew what it was. Back in the day, he used to drink a lot of soy milk that tasted like beans, along with Soymage, cheese, and carob, all of which should be internationally banned. We'll talk about that. He is a professional speaker, insert plug, www.gregbennick.com, and has sung for multiple punk rock bands for decades, all of which serve to connect people with transformative ideas. He is the author of Reclaim the Moment, 7 Strategies to Build a Better Now, published by Wiley and Sons. In his spare time, he likes Thai food, juggling fire, and podcast interviews. So this is your spare time today. Thank you so much for giving it up.
You're very welcome.
I'm so excited.
I love this.
Okay. Oh, and remember, subscribe and comment. Ask us all the questions. I don't know if Greg will answer them later, once this is on YouTube.
No, I'm happy to.
Oh, wow. You heard it from the man. So make sure that you keep up on this, because we're going to have a lot of video shorts of this very lovely episode. And we love your comments and your questions and ideas for topics and other speakers too. So let's get the ball rolling. So our first question, Greg Bennick, tell us, what kind of food did you eat as a child? And what were your family's values around food?
Okay, so this could be the entire podcast, but instead I'll make it quick and then we can branch out from there. So my family has such a complex relationship with food, both in terms of what we ate, how much we ate, when we ate, just very unusual, I think, by normal societal standards. The family history is Jewish. We were Jewish, and we had a very intense, extended family of extremely Orthodox relatives, and also historically extremely poor relatives who had, grown up eating like, fish heads and all sorts of like things that people don't normally see or hear about people eating, but that people eat when they're poor, right?
Yeah.
So I think that informed my parents' eating decisions. And we grew up eating just all sorts of meat and things that today I don't consider food. But, I grew up eating those things. Like, I remember eating like raw hamburger sandwiches, like literally raw hamburger with onion powder, sliced onion on bread. Like, I mean, really, we're talking unusual things. Your face says it all. And you feel free to judge, feel free to be repulsed, because I can't even believe it. When I bring that up to my mom now, she's like, did I really serve you that? I'm like, uh-huh. The point is, I grew up in a family where exercise was really important to my mom, who was an aerobics instructor, and to my brother, who to this day owns a gym in New York City and has lifted weights and worked out. I mean, I don't want to say every day, because you do take days off when you're doing it right. Since the 1980s, I mean, he's like a perfect physical specimen. It's pretty remarkable. Perfect by societal, you get it, standards.
Is he vegan too?
He's not. He just, just works out really smartly and consistently. The kind of things that I say I'm going to do and don't often do, like that incredible consistency and kinesthetic awareness to just do it right, if that makes sense, rather than dive in, do 1,000 push-ups and then never work out again, that sort of thing. The point is that growing up, I was surrounded by exercise and surrounded by these strange eating habits, and then landed on veganism when I was in high school. Vegetarianism first, then veganism, and everything changed for me. It was just something about it. Just, I always kind of aim for the ease in some ways, like professionally, for example. If I'm getting resistance on a path, I have to pay attention to that, so that maybe I go in the direction of ease or the direction of flow. And vegetarianism and veganism offered flow to me in terms of health and mental sharpness. So I just went with that. Happy to dive into that more, though. But that's kind of the history. Raw hamburger sandwiches and unusual foods.
So did you eat kind of typical, like, I don't know, Otter Pops, frozen TV dinners, mac and cheese, pizza, hot dogs, French fries?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that. I mean, it wasn't the basis of the diet, but I mean, we did eat a lot of pizza. I grew up in the Northeast in Connecticut, and it was, what we called subs, what other people call it. Well, no, we called them grinders. Other people call them subs. Were really popular. So heavy meat cheese sandwiches with like lots of mayonnaise and stuff like that. The types of things that I couldn't imagine eating throughout a lifetime personally. So, growing up, though, it seemed to make sense to eat, stuff out of the freezer and, as the primary focus of your diet. But, and my mom cooked as well, though. She certainly cooked and did a good job with cooking. It wasn't just all raw hamburger sandwiches, but there was that influence of unusual things. I guess that speaks to my mom's creativity. Let's have it be that.
Yeah. So you said around high school-ish, you started to dive into the vegetarianism first?
Yeah, basically what was happening was that, in the late 80s, which is my high school era, I was involved in punk rock. And I was eating meat freshman, sophomore year of high school. And at the time, let's call it 1988 in Connecticut, something called straight edge really took off. And for listeners who are unaware of what straight edge is, it's kind of a lifestyle, for lack of a better word, a value system which prioritizes clarity of mind and health of the body over the intoxicants that society will also often peddle and push our way to numb us or to make us, dependent on more of the same. So when straight edge took off in 1988 and really kicked in, it had been around for a while, and I was, it was part of the punk rock scene. So I started seeing and hearing lyrics and seeing images of lots of straight edge bands and wanted to know more about them. And a lot of the bands at the time were promoting vegetarianism along with no drugs and no alcohol. And I was interested. There was a song called "No More" by a band called Youth of Today, and the lyrics of the song, meat eating, flesh eating, think about it. So callous is the crime you commit, really struck me. And I was at the Anthrax, which was a famous punk club in Connecticut, the night that Youth of Today filmed their "No More" video, and it was transformative for me to be around that vegetarian energy. Well, what I found very quickly over the course of, I'd say, 2 years of being vegetarian when I made that jump was that I was eating lots of the same sandwiches that I ate before, but instead of having piles of meat on them, now they just had piles of cheese along with the mayo. And I decided that I had to get away from that. I mean, being vegetarian wasn't helping me lose weight or get in shape. I just switched one kind of, for lack of a better word, and I'm being slightly dramatic, one poison for the other, right? I was eating way too much dairy. So I decided, based on the inspiration of seeing a good friend of mine who was vegan, being vegan and surviving, that I would give that a shot. And I did, and never looked back.
Wow. Yeah, I went vegetarian in I 8th grade, and it was because of a dare by two friends. It had nothing to do with punk rock yet. And it was just two of my girlfriends, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to be vegetarian for a week. You want to try it?" And I'm like, "Sure." And it was really easy for me. And I had no internet back then to look up what vegetarian was or wasn't, or why you should be vegetarian or anything. And I just stuck with it. And my parents were supportive. And then by the time I was into punk rock in high school, I was going to shows, and I was seeing, all the videos, and also hearing bands talk about it. And I'm like, man, I feel like I need to go vegan. I really want to go vegan. I'm not ready yet. And so by the time I was 17, end of my 17th year, that's when I went vegan.
Nice.
And I was vegan for 7 years. But I don't want to get too much into my details. I want to hear about your vegan journey, because I will tell you that it was hard for me. I ended up very anemic and fatigued and had some other issues, including a pretty heavy case of depression. And, I'd like to hear about your journey, because I'm sure it's been a ride, right? Not all easy peasy, but also not all difficult, right? Because you're still vegan after 35 years, and there's a reason. There's probably many reasons. So please share with us kind of how it started. Like, when you went vegan, what was it like?
Sure. I mean, when I went vegan originally, it was harder. Certainly, there wasn't as many vegan. There wasn't access to as many readily available vegan foods as there are today. So when I started out, my bio jokes about drinking soy milk that tasted like beans. I mean, soy milk at the time was not great. And, we have to be careful today that there's not too much sugar in the things we eat. I need to check myself constantly, and I probably overeat sugar by multiples and need to pull that back, because, when you get vanilla oat milk at the grocery store, and it's in every grocery store nationwide, it's full of sugar, it can be, right? So things like that, though, weren't available back in the proverbial day, and they certainly didn't think to flavor much. So, the Eden soys and the brands that existed then were not good compared to what we have today. And I joked about Soymage, the vegan cheese. That was rough, just rough.
I ate it too. I drank it too.
Absolutely. And I joke about carob in my bio too. I have an ongoing joke with a good friend of mine about carob, and how when carob came out as a replacement for chocolate, we all sang its praises and then quickly realized that everyone disliked it immensely. So anyway, perhaps you love carob. I was not a fan. point is that the one thing that I had going for me is that I tended to eat a lot, and that was to my benefit and to my detriment too. Detriment because it meant always struggling with weight, right? And always too many calories in versus calories out, which is the effect of wanting to be a coin collector and sit around and stare at coins, or be a punk rocker and contemplate the world rather than being outside playing sports, which is what a lot of people my age were doing. Moshing doesn't quite count as a sport. So I was, I ate a lot. Well, here's the good side of that. A lot of people, when they go vegan, they go, oh, I don't know what to eat. I guess carrots. And then all of a sudden it's 3 weeks later and they're like, I can't take it anymore. I feel like I'm dying. And they're not getting their nutrients. And psychologically, they're not getting their nutrients. They're probably fine-ish, and I'm not a doctor, on many nutrients, but it feels like you're not getting enough. Well, when you're eating too much, let's just say, like I was, I never felt like I was starving, right? I never felt like that. Oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? So being vegan wasn't a challenge in terms of feeling hungry all the time. But over time, I realized that I just needed to get more creative before the world caught up and products caught up and the availability of vegan products caught up. So, the hard parts over time have been wondering whether or not I'm getting proper nutrients. I literally today was late coming to this interview by a minute or 2 or 3 because I was at a doctor getting a doctor's checkup for vitamin B12, checking to see if I'm getting enough B12. And the question is, am I? And, I supplement, but, what we're looking at now is whether or not vitamin B12 has been a deficiency at times in my life, and what are the effects of that? And, I mentioned today to my doctor once again, I'm vegan and I have been for quite some time. Oh, which is a dangerous response, because sometimes people go, oh, well, that explains every ill in the entire world, because they're unfamiliar with it. But, we'll let science and blood tests and things like that sort itself out. Because I'm just curious. I'm curious to see if I've got the right nutrient levels in my body after 35 years of this vegan experiment. We'll see. I mean, I seem healthy, sound healthy, and look healthy, but am I?
Do you
we'll find
feel
out.
healthy? Like, how's your energy? How's your focus? How's your sleep?
My sleep has gotten better recently, unrelated to veganism. Typically, I don't sleep much, and I haven't, like, for many, many, many years. And recently I decided that I was going to start taking like an Advil PM before bed, just to calm me just one edge level down. It's been miraculous. Like, sleeping through the night, 7 hours sometimes, which is unheard of. Like, there was way too much time in my life where I would sleep 3 hours a night, 5 hours a night, things like that, which is entirely unhealthy for me. Energy level is kind of extraordinary. It doesn't make sense how my energy level is as high as it is. And then my focus, as good as anyone with diagnosed ADHD can be, pretty good. Once I dial it in, I'm shockingly focused. But of course, oh my gosh, look, a pen. That's always an issue.
Yeah, I'm curious if you've played around with food, changing the foods you eat to address the ADHD.
I haven't yet, and that's a really good idea. I think that one thing that I've noticed is that, well, I'll tell you this. When I left this out accidentally before, there was a stretch of 4 or 5 months, it was about 10 years ago, that I went all raw vegan, like super strict raw. And it was incredible. And without championing that cause, I'll tell you the bare bones of it is that I was real strict. Like, I made my own toothpaste. Like, I was like sprouting foods, and like it was I took it to the limit, right? For that short amount of time. The point is, though, the first handful of days of eating raw, you are so hungry that that's all you can think about. And then days, let's just say 3, 4, 5, like in there, all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, I see. If I eat enough of this raw food, it gives me the energy to get through my day to the next meal. And I know that works. So then I'll eat more energy at the meal coming up, and then have the energy to continue to the next one. Oh, and then you start realizing, wait, that's the function of food, right? That's what it's kind of supposed to do. It's not supposed to make me feel as though I'm slipping into a coma because I just ate 14 vegan hot dogs and the pizza and you know what I mean? Well, by day 7, 8, 9, all of a sudden you're feeling like, wait a minute, I'm kind of like a machine here, like energy in, energy out machine. And I've joked in the past that by the end of 3 or 4 weeks of eating raw, I mean, I could talk to my ancestors, and I don't mean I was hallucinating. I mean, like, I had like superpowers. I felt like I could walk through walls. I mean, like, I was one step away from being able to fly. So every time, as a vegan now who loves his fake meat, and oh my gosh, I like this, fake this and fake that and fake this. You got to be careful with how highly processed that stuff is. But it also doesn't serve the same function, right? If I eat a vegan pizza or have a vegan, a vegan burger of some kind, a vegan chicken burger, yeah, it might taste good. But I know from personal experience that eating raw connected me differently to energy levels and focus levels. So yeah, I think that ADHD could most definitely be impacted if I was to shift my diet away from processed foods and more towards raw things.
Yeah, it sounds like because I'm not vegan anymore, I have a different struggle, but I would say it's very similar no matter what dietary pattern you adhere to. These days, there's so much access kind of anywhere you go to ultra processed food. And it is so hyper palatable and it's targeted at every single dietary pattern. Like a vegan can have ice cream now, a carnivore can have ice cream. Like anybody can have anything, and it doesn't mean it's great for you, but it's either affordable or just accessible and quick and easy. And sometimes, even if it's not affordable, we go for the quick and easy route. And so, one of the things that I went raw for a while too, many, many years ago. And so I imagine if you were sprouting your own foods and things like that, making your own toothpaste, that's pretty badass. I haven't even gotten there, Greg. Jeez. I thought I beat you with some of these things, but no, he wins. You win. It's 1 point for Greg. He made his own toothpaste. Can you tell us what's in it?
I can't remember at this point, but I'd be happy to share it with listeners if I remember. I at the time I looked up, what went into toothpaste, and there was, there's all these different herbs, and I can't even recall, but I just remember making toothpaste.
Was
Oh
it a
my
powder
gosh.
or a paste?
I remember it being a paste.
Okay.
And I can't recall what was in it though. But then again, I was speaking to my ancestors in a raw food inspired, just state. So I don't know. Maybe my ancestors told me what to put in it. I have no idea.
Hey, I've been there. We won't get into that. Chronic foot condition, gone. That was an herbal paste remedy that I made that was sent from beyond. Anyway, so raw stuff, vegan stuff. Do you feel like you have to love to cook to be vegan, like a healthy vegan?
Well, here's the thing. Let's recognize, and I think that you'd agree that it's okay to eat some processed foods. Like that's an okay thing. And that helps, right? If you're not the best cook in the world, eating a veggie burger isn't the worst thing that ever happened to you. But what you said was really like on point. What happens if we fall into the standard American diet vegan version and I get off this call and I eat the standard things that everyone else is eating, and then the frozen foods, the processed foods, followed up with ice cream and, eat vegan candy. See what I'm getting at? Like, that's not healthy. I mean, just because, I remember at one point, a friend of mine, who's much older, was, we're going to have dinner, and I got takeout, like Thai food takeout, and it was all, of course, vegan. Brought it over to his house, and we're sitting around eating it. And he goes, "Oh my gosh." We had pad thai and the peanut sauce and this and this and this. And he goes, "Wow. And all of this is healthy?" I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Nope. It's vegan. Does not mean it's healthy." So I think that it's very possible to be not so great of a cook and rely a little bit on some of the processed things, or rely a little bit on some help along the way from what exists now today, and not have to make your own soy milk or toothpaste for that matter. It's helpful to get better at cooking, but you don't have to be a good cook, certainly, to be vegan. I caution myself and anyone listening to just watch our sugar intake and our processed food intake, because there are people who are living in houses much bigger than the ones we live in, who live in those houses because of our processed food intake and our sugar intake. People love selling stuff like that to people. And we're happily buyers of it all the time because it's easy. And sometimes, as you said, it's relatively inexpensive or can be. And things that are sweet taste good, but we have to just be careful because processed food over time and sugar over time, for me, I'll just speak for me, have shown for me to cause a decrease in energy and a decrease in focus. And, eating late at night, same thing, messed up sleep, we just have to be careful.
Yeah, we talk a lot about refined sugar and refined flours on the podcast because, there's still this fight of, while the human body needs carbohydrates, we need sugar to survive. Our brain needs it. We can't live without it. And of course, there are plenty of people who live without it and they're fine. And then there are people who struggle and, eat a little bit more. And there are people who eat a lot. But yeah, I've noticed I was at a farm stand thing the other day. It was more like a market, but it was on some farmland and they have all their produce and veggies and stuff. And the owners are vegan. And they said that they don't sell anything that they wouldn't eat. And I was like, oh, cool. And I'm walking around, I'm looking at these like shelf stable goods. Some of them were local, but a lot of them weren't. And a lot of it was ultra processed food. It was, caramel corn or chips or some sauce mix or some candy or chocolate. And it's funny because it wasn't all vegan and I was confused, but it was vegetarian and mostly vegan. And I had a conversation with a couple of the staff and I was like, hey, you're an organic farm. You have great produce and stuff. You have beautiful fruit. Like, why are you shipping in all this stuff? And she's like, because we're the only kind of grocery store in a few mile radius and people want products.
They do.
And I was like, okay, I get it. And you're going to make more money off of a bag of chips than a bunch of carrots. And that's unfortunate. And that's the choice they're making. And, I still support them. I don't buy any of the ultra processed food, but, it was easy and tempting to buy it because it was right there. And I thought, how sometimes you go into a store, like a health food store or natural food store, and you just, maybe not anymore, but for many years, I just defaulted to this assumption that whatever was in the store was healthy.
That's right.
That person who said, oh, this vegan Thai food is like healthy. And you're like,
not so much.
There's a lot of sugar in that Thai food, right? One of my favorite Thai spots, in Seattle, vegan Thai spots, I stopped eating because when I started to wean myself off of cane sugar, savory foods that were sweetened didn't taste good to me anymore. And it just tasted like sugar. And I was like, dang, I can't eat this stuff anymore. It doesn't taste good to me. So I learned how to make my own version of certain Thai dishes and stuff like that. But that whole sugar world and access and convenience and addiction, that was another thing that, there's a lot of science to back up this reality of, certain sugars being more addictive than drugs. And they're trying to get food addiction into the, what is it? The DSM?
Yeah.
The therapeutic manual. Because it triggers so many similar symptoms. It causes so many similar symptoms as drugs do. And,
I believe that. Yeah.
There's unfortunately animal experiments showing rats going for the sugar water over the cocaine water. And it's just like, dude, we're all part of this. And it's not an easy struggle for any of us, whatever dietary pattern we choose. So, you travel a lot and I'm really curious, how do you eat the food that you really want to eat that serves your mind, that serves your body when you're on airplanes and boats and jets and, whatever you do?
I often don't get to eat the food that I want to eat, right? I often end up in situations where I'm eating that ultra processed type thing, or I'm getting the burrito at the airport, no cheese, no sour cream, that kind of thing, for days, sometimes weeks on end. And what I often crave when I'm on the road is, and I say to anybody who listen, I just want to be able to choose my own food, because oftentimes the choice is the illusion of choice. I could have either A or B if I'm at the airport. Well, actually, neither of those is what I really want. I just have a choice between A or B. It's the illusion of choice. And what I really want is to be able to make something healthier or enjoy a smoothie or whatever it might be. So it's challenging, but the good news is that there's options available, right? There's options available basically everywhere. There have been very few times in the course of my life, like probably count them on one hand in 3 decades, when there wasn't an option of some kind available somewhere, like at a restaurant, for example. There's always something. There's always an option, even if it's not the option that I want necessarily, but my wants can send me down pretty wild pathways, in terms of food. So I would just love to, every time I travel, be more cognizant of bringing things with me sometimes. Like even tomorrow, I'll be on a plane. And one thing that I did is I bought a block of tofu, albeit processed, and I'll air fry it into cubes, and I'll have these little cubes of fried tofu with some spices on them to eat while I'm on the plane. Air fried tofu cubes and things like that. Not the best thing in the world to eat. Like, I'm not going to like invite you over and say, "Hey, let's have dinner. I made tofu cubes."
Yeah, I spent all of the 2000s trying to make tofu taste good.
Yeah, exactly.
Marinate it for a day and
totally. And I have a lot of success with tofu. I like it, and I have. But the key is good tofu. So there's a place in Seattle I go that's great. There's a place in Portland that's even better for fresh tofu. And I just find that if I'm on the road, I do the best that I possibly can with what's available. Sometimes it's not exactly what I want, but it'll do, get me by.
So does that ever put you into a position of voluntary or maybe involuntary fasting? Do you experiment with intermittent fasting when you travel?
I haven't. I haven't, but I've thought about it, because people who do intermittent fasting or who are involved in that seem to be healthy and seem to be happy and seem to be like losing weight and sleeping better and all these sorts of things. In the last couple of years, I've just found that if I try that, it's one more thing to think about, and I just haven't had the mental space or created the mental space to try it for the requisite 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in order to dive into it. But the people who are involved in intermittent fasting, they say great things about it. I've never heard anybody say, "Yeah, I'm doing this fasting thing, and I just can't stand losing weight and sleeping better." No one said that to me.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's always got great things to say.
Yeah, it's a process, and I don't ever encourage anyone to just jump into it uneducated. And of course, the internet is a mixed bag of education and miseducation.
Yeah.
However, I do really respect Jason Fung, who has a couple books out, and he has some great YouTube videos as well. But he's kind of the king of intermittent fasting, and so he explains it simply. He warns people, like, don't do this if you have other, coexisting health conditions. Always talk to a doctor. And a lot of times people have this misunderstanding that fasting is you don't eat all day, period. That's just, you don't eat. But a lot of what I've been learning and also trying for myself is fasting overnight when I'm sleeping, because it's a lot easier. I'm not thinking about food in my dreams usually, unless I, didn't eat enough the day before. But like, you said earlier, eating earlier in the day. So instead of eating dinner at 9 p.m., maybe having dinner at 5 or 6 p.m., and then having a natural fast for the rest of the night until you wake up the next morning and eat, at 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock or whatever. So I was just curious if you had experimented with that, because it's kind of trending right now in the health world, and I do, support it. I just, tread lightly if you haven't tried it. Get a professional to guide you on that. Because I travel a fair amount, nothing compared to you, but I get it too. Because I try and stay. My big thing is stay off the sugar, and protein bars have more sugar than protein usually. since I eat meat, I can do jerky, but that's usually loaded with sugar as well. So I have to find a sugar-free jerky that's like $26 at the airport. And so I focus on electrolytes that I bring with me. And I also bring snacks. You know, I'll do nuts. I'm not really into dairy, so I'll bring, what did I bring? Oh, I brought like a whole bag of those meat sticks or whatever on my last trip. And I've been into dehydrating. I haven't been able to freeze dry anything yet because that's like a really big investment. I don't know if you've seen a freeze dryer, but
I
they're
have not.
amazing. They're
Really?
amazing.
That's
Well,
cool.
they preserve the nutrients and it doesn't change the composition of the food like dehydrating does, where dehydrating makes, you know, for example, the fruit and the sugar go up because you take all the water out. So then if you were trying to stay low sugar, even though you're not adding it, dehydration causes it to be significantly higher in sugar for people who, well, for anyone, but for people who are trying to watch their blood sugar and insulin, you know,
Okay.
dried fruit is usually not recommended. But freeze drying, it not only preserves the nutrients, but it has a much longer shelf life. And it's kind of crazy. Like I had a freeze-dried carrot and a freeze-dried potato and a freeze-dried piece of cabbage.
Okay.
And it like melted in my mouth. It was actually really, really good. And I didn't know that was a thing that you could do that until recently. But anyway, that's like a $10,000 investment.
Wow. That's a lot.
I have no recommendations.
That's an expensive piece of cabbage.
Yeah, but I hear that, you know, when you're on long trips, you can't bring a refrigerated thing. You got to bring a shelf-stable thing or just deal with what you got at the airport. Well, you know, you mentioned there was a handful of times in your life where you might have been somewhere where there wasn't something vegan that you wanted to eat, right? Was that, you think, due to culture? Like you were in a country that was different? Yep. Like what?
Sometimes,
yeah.
I mean, most of the time it's been just, there's nothing on a menu. The handful of times this happened, but I remember I've spent a lot of time in Haiti. So there have been a few times in Haiti in rural areas where there wasn't anything vegan, or if I'm invited to a meal and the dinner is going to be the goat that was running around the village a couple hours ago, that kind of thing. And, rather than respectfully decline the meal, which is what sometimes people, suggest you can do. Oh, no, thank you. Which could be seen as offensive. Like, hey man, we just killed this goat, like for you. You know what I mean? Like that was our goat.
Yeah.
That was the only one. And now you're not going to eat it. What I've often done, and I said 5 times, but maybe let's call it 10 with a couple of those in rural communities in different parts of the world. What I've often done is, if I can imagine that there might not be vegan options, I engage with locals in a way that is busy and productive, so that when it comes time to the meal, we're doing something else, and we find something else, and we are doing something else, rather than now we sit down and eat the meal that contains only the goat. So that way, instead of saying no thank you, I don't want this meal, it's more like, we're actually working on this thing. We want to make sure we finish. You go ahead and eat, and we'll meet up with you in a bit. That approach I found works a little bit better than, I don't want your meal, thank you. Which is what people hear when they say, oh no, thank you, I'm vegan. Like, I'm not going to, how am I going to translate vegan to Creole when I'm, in the jungle, right? Not going to do it. So that's worked really well, because what people do is they go, oh, okay, well, we can save you. We can make some rice and have that for you later. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll have some rice. I remember being in Haiti and I have an organization called 100 for Haiti, and we had built some roofs for some people. We are always building roofs, even now in 2026, always building roofs. And I had built a roof for, not I should never say that. We built a roof. The Haitians built a roof. I had helped coordinate the building of a particular roof for a particular guy. Point is, I was in Haiti, and the guy offered a rudimentary meal, and it was cassava that he had pounded into this sheet, right? The sheet of cassava. And it was vegan. It just happened to be. The reason I'm bringing it up, though, is because he handed me a piece, and I took a bite, and it tasted, to my palate, this is not what it tastes like to the Haitians, but to my palate, it tasted like like if you took just like, a quarter of a ream of paper and just soaked it in water and left it to dry in the sun. It was wild. It was wild. And as I took that first bite, I thought, there's no possible way I'm going to eat this entire piece. And I thought to myself, I'm going to eat this entire piece. And I sat there with the guy and I ate this huge piece of the dried cassava, and we're just talking. And it was nothing that I ever would choose to eat. But in that moment, it was such a great cultural moment, because he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell him this is horrifying. I told him, yeah, it's great. Thank you. Anyway, how's the roof? And we just sat there in the sun in this rural village and talked and ate, quite a bit of cassava, as I remember. So food can be a great cultural connecting force. And I always try to make sure that me being vegan doesn't get in the way of connection. I'd rather have it be something that helps connect me to people. And one random approach that I've used, or rather random suggestion that might work for some people, if you let people know that you're allergic to some foods, they go, oh, okay. Well, why don't we just, we've got some, like I said before, we can make you some rice. Perfect. I don't need every meal to be like the vegan culinary masterpiece. If I just get by to the next day, I'm good. So especially in communities like that, because, I have to remember too, that it's pretty luxurious to be able to choose to be vegan. I mean, that's a pretty luxurious thing to say, oh, I'm not going to eat all these things that most other people eat. My gosh, there's people all over the world who would love the chance to eat all those things that anyone eats, or eat anything. And here I am going, no, I think I'll stick to tofu, thanks. It's a pretty, what's the word? You get it,
Yeah.
It's a privileged position.
Very privileged. Yeah. And I just went to India last November, and it was my first time there.
Awesome.
And I was in Goa first, and it was very meat and seafood heavy. So for me, it was fine. But I'm very low carb. So I can't pig out on grains. Rice, barley, oats, nope, doesn't work well with my system. And so I would just have a salad with, fish or whatever. And then I went to Bangalore to an ashram where it's strict vegetarian, and they did have dairy, but I don't do cow dairy. So that was their main, they had plant-based things that were their protein sources, but it was higher in carbohydrates, like the beans, the lentils, the chickpeas, the gram, flour to make the roti and things like that. And I was wearing a CGM at the time, a continuous glucose monitor, and I had bought some eggs and had them stashed in my Airbnb just because I needed that protein. But when I was at the ashram, I would eat meals with my family and other people, and I wouldn't even eat half of what they were serving because I couldn't stomach all the carbs. And it tasted great. Don't get me wrong. The spices, the herbs, great. But man, my blood sugar spiked so high. And I'm thinking, people eat like this all day, every day. Like, what's wrong with me? Millions of people eat like this every day. And of course, I work through it. It's like, there's nothing wrong with me. My body has adapted to a low carbohydrate, higher protein, higher fat diet. And so, when I was vegan, when I was in West Africa, I wasn't as savvy as you getting around the invites to meals and things. And I was with a good mutual friend of ours, and we would just eat the rice and around the meat. And we started to feel a little bit queasy because just the meat juice was in the sauce. Yep. We got through it fine. It was fine. And I stayed vegan for the most part for a number of years after that. But yeah, it was an interesting experience in India because there was literally no meat allowed to be sold in the town. And so I had a cab driver drive me to the other town, and all they had were eggs in this one supermarket. And I was like, okay, cool. So I survived and it was fine. But it's just interesting how two people, you and me, have this different dietary pattern, but we have similar struggles. And I have a doctor who's been on the show before, Dr. Tony Hampton, that I have mad respect for because he's carnivore. But he goes around preaching about the unification and the harmony of vegans and meat eaters as a doctor, right? He doesn't push one dietary lifestyle on any of his patients, but I actually saw him speak once at a conference, and the whole presentation was about why vegans and carnivores and everybody in between need to work together for our metabolic health, because we all want to be happy and healthy, right? And what works for one may not work for another, whether it's physically or spiritually or politically, and so if you ever get a chance, definitely watch that episode. I'll have to look it up, plug it for our listeners. Dr. Tony Hampton, he's from Chicago, great guy. And I just loved our interview. It was Magic of Metabolic Health. Huh. That's funny. The algorithm's not working in my favor. I'll have to put it in the show notes. So, and that's one reason, Greg, why I wanted to have you on the show is veganism didn't work for me after 7 years. Okay. But I don't want to knock it, and I don't want to knock anyone who thrives with it. And I think people who engage in our content and watch or listen to the show need to understand that metabolic health there's so much nuance to it. And I love that you talked about the ultra processed foods as a vegan. I also love that you talked about the B12 concern. Luckily I never struggled with B12 deficiency. I struggled, unfortunately, with iron deficiency. And that continued years and years beyond me not being vegan. It was really hard to get back a whatever normal optimal level of iron in my blood. But so I lost my train of thought. Where was I going? What were we talking about?
Veganism.
Oh, that
metabolic
thing.
health.
Metabolic health, right. And so, I didn't tell you this, but I hope you want to talk a little bit about this. There's a corner in the world, in the internet world, of people who talk about plants trying to kill you. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not.
Okay, well, we won't get too deep into it, but I think it's ridiculous, number one. Number two, I also understand why people are saying that. It's very clickbaity, but ultimately they're saying that there are chemical compounds in plants that can cause inflammation, problems in human bodies, lectins, lots of other things that we don't have to get into. So I was just curious if you heard that. They also tend to say plants don't want you to eat them. Yeah. So we can go to any extreme, Greg. Like
we evidently can. I don't know if plants want. Plants do respond when you speak politely to them, or are kind to your plants, right? And they seem to, the plant over in the window over here seems to do better when it's in the window rather than if I keep it in a closet. So I'm sure that plants are on some level certainly sentient-ish beings, right? And I've always felt when walking in the woods that we should be kind to trees, because they will let other trees know to help our way through the woods and make it easier. That's always just been something that I've enjoyed thinking about when I'm in the woods. But am I going to go plant-free vegan? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't even know how that would work. You'd probably be an airist.
Aeritarian. A breathitarian.
Aguatarian.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure someone's going to try and do it. Actually,
someone will.
There was someone who didn't eat food for almost a full calendar year.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know who that was. Okay, let's move. Let's keep on moving. There are so many rabbit holes we can go down. So let's talk about tradition and holidays in the U.S. specifically are they're a big influence in our lives, whether we celebrate them or not, right? A large number of people around us celebrate them. Therefore, we get invited to Christmas parties, we get invited to Easter parties, Halloween parties, whatever. I'm curious, that is one topic that gets brought up a lot with my client population, because they really worry about the upcoming holidays when they're trying to stay on track with their dietary pattern that, supports their mental health and physical health. How do you modify, or how do you participate in these traditions? Like, I mean, we all know about tofurkey.
Yep.
And I choked that stuff down in the 90s, and because it was the only thing that
It's
it
the only thing available.
didn't even look like a turkey, but we were so
No.
desperate to be part of this tradition, right? So talk about how you celebrate your traditions as far as
Totally.
food.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in that my immediate family, when I decided to go vegetarian and vegan, didn't give me the standard resistance that a lot of people get. Like, why are you doing that? Well, you shouldn't do that. We don't support you doing that. They were like, okay. And my mom, at the time, when she was making something, would make an option or make something that happened to be vegetarian or vegan. So, it fit. And over time, sure, there have been situations where you get, around on the holidays and you can't, if you're choosing to be vegan, eat everything that everybody else is eating. But what I've done is offered to bring something to the meal. That's an easy way to get through this, right? Quite honestly, if you said to me, Greg, science has shown that being a mashed potato-tarian is the only thing that we need to survive, I'd go, great, sign me up. I'll love that. I would eat mashed potatoes every single day. I love them. So I look forward to it all year long because I never eat them during the year. Or if you said being a stuffing-tarian, I'm in. Give me stuffing and mashed potatoes with some type of gravy on them. And I'm like, the happiest person alive. So I offer to bring stuffing. I offer to bring mashed potatoes. And the thing is, as we talked about earlier, I'm not a genius of a cook, but with the internet offering support, help, and aid and recipes and suggestions on what ingredients to use, I can make some pretty good mashed potatoes or some stuffing that I would bring to the party. And as is often true, it turns out to be people going, oh my gosh, who made these mashed potatoes? They're delicious. Not who made this crap vegan junk. Never. Who made the stuffing? Oh my gosh. And that's the one dish that's gone. And you know what I mean? That everybody eats. So again, I don't need, and this is just me, I don't need the tradition of cranberry sauce and the meat dish and the stuffing and the side of whatever people eat. To me, in my mind, as long as I'm there celebrating with friends, family, and loved ones, if I've got the one thing that gets me through the meal, I can go home and eat more later if I need to. I've never needed to do that though. Offer to bring something, or you could tell your host in advance and just say, I really don't want to be difficult, but I've decided to be vegan. And I know that sounds intimidating, but maybe I could make some suggestions on how to have some things be vegan and also delicious. Everybody's in it for the delicious. We
Yeah.
want sensation. That's what we're all about. So if you offer to keep everyone's sensation heightened, then they're going to be happy. They're going to be, at least they should be more amenable than if you just say, I don't want any animal products in my Christmas dinner. They go, whoa, 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 whoa. I can't do that. But if you say, hey, I'm going to offer to make some suggestions about the mashed potatoes that make them vegan and delicious for everyone. I promise. Okay, we'll try that. That's what I found works. I'm also happy to have those conversations with people and to dive into them. And if you're not excited to have those conversations with your potential hosts, then I would say offer to make something, offer to bring something for the meal.
Agreed. Yeah, I do the same thing. And I usually don't say what it isn't or what it is. I'll do the title, right? Green bean casserole.
Amazing.
I always make it vegan. Nobody knows.
Amazing.
Nobody knows. And they love it.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, I love that creativity. And instead of confrontation, you just prepare. You prepare.
Yeah. And don't think that Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter doesn't need to be your raw food vegan, make your own toothpaste day. It could be your processed food vegan day, right? And if so, then you've got a whole plethora of things that you can eat. And again, I'm not a doctor, right? None of what I'm saying should be taken as medical advice, but I would have a feeling that your metabolic health is not going to be thrown so far out of whack if maybe you introduce a bit more processed food that day, or a lot more processed food that meal. I think you'll probably be all right.
Yeah. And we talk about that too, is, how do we, so I don't like the word moderation because it's subjective. You can't define moderation anywhere with anyone. Everyone has their own definition of it. So I never suggest that to my clients. and I don't use it for myself either. But what I do say is modify whatever you want to have or your family wants to have, and make it your own, right? And if there is a lot of ultra processed food that's going to be at an event, and you know yourself, right? Like I have some clients, they can't just do one day because it starts this
Fair
vicious
enough.
cycle,
Totally
right?
fair. Yep.
And I can say that I can do a day, but what I also have to say openly and candidly is that the next day I have mad cravings.
Right. And I get
Mad
that. Yeah, I
cravings.
hear that.
And I don't want to deal with that physiologically, mentally, emotionally. And, you know, I've gotten a lot better. I don't beat myself up if I do choose to have something that impacts that state. But that has helped me stay on my path more consistently. It's like, last time I ate that, I felt like crap for 2 days. I binged, or I wanted to binge, and I was just fighting with myself or whatever. And so I want to be mindful of that for people who are on this trajectory of like optimizing their metabolic health, especially if they have chronic disease, right? Prediabetes, diabetes, blood pressure, you know, there's lots of things, even mental health, right? There's this fabulous documentary, Greg. I really recommend you see it. It's called The Cholesterol Code.
Huh.
And it's brand new. I know a bunch of people involved in the film, and they highlight one particular person in there. I believe he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and none of the drugs were working for years and years. And then he changed his dietary pattern, and slowly but surely, his symptoms started to disappear. And he started to be able to function, like literally couldn't function before, couldn't hold a job, you know, couldn't make appointments. And he talked about it in the film. And I think a lot of times people minimize the impact of our dietary patterns on our mental health.
Mm.
And that's why I asked you about the ADHD is, you know, do you ever notice, and maybe you kind of already answered this, but do you ever notice that your mood feels a little off if you do have an indulging day or an indulgent
Oh, yeah,
meal?
for sure.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's a second answer to your question that answers this one and that one, is that one other approach you can take to Thanksgiving or Christmas, Easter, etc., if you don't want to indulge or even break the pattern of healthy by your standards eating, is hold your ground and say to your host, I'm bringing a big salad. I've found recently that I need to be eating this particular way. The holiday for me is about the connection, and the meal, which is not the food. Ultimately, I'm coming for the connection at the meal, capital M, I guess you'd say, which is the conversation, the camaraderie, you know, the connections. So I'm just going to bring a plate of what might look unusual, and it's no offense to you or your cooking, but I promise that I will feel much better. And I'm really coming there to just kind of be in love with everybody and not necessarily eat the same foods, but share the same experience and just hold your ground on the food. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a way to approach that too. So, and to answer, and how that answers your question is, oh yeah, if I overindulge, if I get, like I said, if I get off this call and I have, you know, the processed food festival, I can promise you that if you call me in 3 hours, I'm not going to be running a marathon. I'm going to be sitting here trying to figure out how to make it through the next 14 minutes without falling asleep.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and that's just another reality that I think the majority of us have in our lives. And I hope that this podcast can continue to help people not feel alone in that journey and understand that, and I said this earlier, it doesn't matter what your dietary pattern is. If it works for you, it works for you, and you know what doesn't work. And that's also just as important for you to acknowledge and stand your ground with. Whatever time of year, you know, we're in. And so I kind of wanted to jump back, and you mentioned when you first went vegetarian, or was it vegan, when you were kind of overeating and you realized later, like, I don't need to eat that much.
Yeah.
And there was some struggle with weight and things like that. A lot of people I've heard talk about veganism these days, whether it's, you know, medical professionals or whoever, one of the concerns is overeating as a vegan because you're not getting as many nutrient dense foods that are bioavailable to your body. Again, depends on the person, right? The blood type diet is something that people talk about. Like I'm an O positive and I keep the posy. And I learned many years ago that maybe I don't thrive on plant-based foods for more than one reason, because the O's are the original blood type and we thrive more on hunter-gatherer types of foods. But anyway, I digress. I'd like to, if you're comfortable, ask you to share how you've experienced health challenges as a vegan and how you've overcome them with strategies. Because I know like protein shakes are sometimes really popular, but for some people, they are not really bioavailable. They don't work. I don't know if you've found that to get your protein. Maybe it could be more of a conversation about how to get that protein, which is one of the most important essential nutrients. And
yeah, I've never kind of latched on to the desperate need for protein that a lot of vegans feel they have to have. And I think it's because I just eat protein shakes and I eat tofu and I eat tempeh and I eat, the fake meat type things. And anytime I've had blood tests done, I seem to be doing it quote unquote right, at least for my body. So I've never obsessed about protein much, although I'm always thinking about it. Like, like I said, maybe I mentioned I went out today and got some fresh tofu and ate some of it and loved it. And I'll make the tofu cubes for the flight. The point is, I guess, that I haven't worried as much about protein maybe as I should, but I also don't have decreased energy or my blood levels don't show, a lack thereof. I think that for me, I have always in my mind, somewhere in my mind, thought, oh my gosh, I should lose weight. Oh my gosh, weight this, weight that. But then again, that's also partially upbringing too, right? I mentioned that my brother owns a gym in Manhattan. My mom was an aerobics instructor for half her life. My dad, hiked the Appalachian Trail at 70 or 75 years old or some wild thing. So, and I was always the nerdy book reading kid, right? So I always had, I always thought I could or should lose a few extra pounds. And it's probably on some level, some body dysmorphia at some, on some level. And I'm not diagnosed therein, but, I've always wondered about that because in my mind, there's always this, oh my gosh, should I lose weight? I should lose weight. I should lose weight. That also though falls into that kind of privilege mode of like, really? Is that what I'm going to spend my time worrying about, is whether or not I need to lose 5, 10, 15 pounds? I could eat more healthily. I can always choose to shift and adapt. I don't have to make major shifts. I can eat more salads. One of the things that I found when I was eating raw, interestingly enough, is that I got really clear mentally and I got really fit physically. And I was wondering why that is. I was like, wow, I wonder if I'm gluten intolerant and I wonder if blah, blah, blah. And I wonder if, and then I realized, wait a minute, no, I'm just eating more salads. Like I'm eating salads all the time. And there was a correlation for me between weight loss, clarity, and eating more raw plant-based foods. It's like, oh, okay. It was just really interesting to see that it wasn't necessarily an issue of I need to actively be losing weight, but sometimes just a small substantive shift towards healthier foods that I was eating, did what I needed it to do and helped me feel slim, help my mental state around weight and body perception and that sort of thing. So it doesn't, for me, I found, doesn't have to be a major, major shift, but rather a little bit of a shift. Kind of like if you try to get totally physically in shape next week, you're probably going to fail. Tell me that you're going to get in shape over a year by going to the gym each day for a little while, going on a walk each day. You're going to be in a much better position than if you go full bore all at once. So I found that those little shifts over time do offer a lot of help mentally, physically, all of it.
Do you take any kind of supplements like iron supplements?
I do. Yeah, I take iron and B12 and a couple others that are escaping me in the moment. But yes, there are. I do take supplements just because I'm always concerned. Am I getting enough? And then blood
Mm,
work comes in and says you're doing okay. Your iron levels are good. Your vitamin D. I mean, I
yeah.
live in the Pacific Northwest. We never see the sun, right? The three places I've lived in my life, two of them, Syracuse and Seattle. It's like it's a miracle I can even identify the sun when it's out. But the point is that I find that I I like to supplement just because I think it's a good idea. I think
Hmm.
if it's not hurting me, and a doctor suggests, why don't you try this? Maybe it'll help with your either focus or your this, that, or the other
Hmm.
thing. Then why not try it? But so yeah, I do supplement.
Nice. Yeah. I supplement minimally and I rotate. I'll take some things for a few months, see if I feel different. If I don't, and my blood test doesn't change, then I stop. Because
Hmm.
the whole supplement industry is a beast. And I would love to get all of my needed nutrients from my food. But as even the soil now is depleted. So the
Yeah.
plants and the animals aren't as nutrient dense as they once were. But so another thing, kind of tagging along with, we were talking about health challenges. What about health accomplishments? Like, what I know you said going raw was just
It was wild.
magical,
Yeah,
right?
wild. Hmm.
Anything else that you've done that was an aha moment that maybe was surprising, because you've been vegan for 35 years
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've had ups and downs, right? What
Yeah.
what else have you experienced on that journey?
Yeah, so some active victories are when I've made a conscious choice to eat nutritionally dense foods, when I'm adding chia seeds and hemp seeds to things instead of just not doing that, right? You get the idea. Like if I'm thinking nutrient dense, and that, again, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, but for me, if I'm eating, like, I'm just trying to think of an example, like brown rice with hemp seeds or with chia seeds or with, other things, right?
Hmm.
Rather than just the one thing, adding more to it and making sure that there's more nutrients in it, adding spinach to it, that kind of thing, kale, what have you. Those have been victories, realizing that eating nutrient dense foods are really filling and fulfilling. And at
Hmm.
the same time, I think that's always the goal, right? To feel satiated and at the same time to be, truly satisfied by the things we eat in terms of our clarity and our energy. Ultimately, like I said with the raw experiment, that's what I found food that's when I found out what food really does. It fuels us to the
Hmm.
next meal. It fuels our activities in life. It's not, it does it's best when it does that. And I think that for me, the victories over time have been when I've made food choices that shift a pattern, maybe a little less processed, maybe a little more, not necessarily organic, but just more
Hmm.
natural foods, right? Rather than processed foods. Those are the big jumps for me. I think that the big victories, as it were.
Did you say that you were sprouting foods when you were raw?
The day that and okay, I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with anyone who chooses to eat raw, I'm on board. However, go for it. I go for it. I support you. I believe in you. I think you're great. And I want to be more like you. The moment that I realized that I'd probably at least a little bit lost my mind is when somebody called me on a Tuesday and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just sprouting Friday's breakfast." And I realized what I said, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have lost my mind. What am I doing?" And I didn't mean that in terms of like I'm going to condemn what I'm doing, but rather I was like, "Wow, I've taken this to another level." That I knew that the sprouts I was starting on Tuesday were going to be ready for Friday, and let's go sprouted breakfast. So yeah, that was next level. But yeah, I definitely was
Yeah.
sprouting quite a bit.
Sprouts are quite powerful. Yeah, I appreciate them as well.
Yep. I should be eating more of them actually now, and I should still be eating sprouted food. But again, it's, think about this, that when am I, if I'm traveling a lot, going to sprout foods? That's not going to be my carry on. You know what I mean? Oh,
No,
what
because
is
they
that,
go
sir? Yeah.
they go bad
Yeah.
so fast and
Yeah. No way. So what
yeah.
do? I go, oh, convenience. Let's go buy some tofu. Let's go buy some soy milk. Let's go buy
Mm.
some, convenience. Great convenience. I love convenience.
Oh, let's go back to the soy milk. So
Ooh.
in your bio, you said, and I quote, soy milk that tasted like beans, along with Soymage, cheese, and carob, all of which should be internationally banned. Please expand.
Okay, that's me being ridiculous for comedic sake. If you like carob, rock on. If you like Soymage, I don't think you can even buy it. You might find some in a vegan museum somewhere. Enjoy, right? If you like soy milk that tastes like beans, rock on. I prefer when soy milk is at least vanilla flavored, if not, sweetened. I mean, I love the sweetened foods, right? But at the same time, I love it when it's unsweetened too. It tasted like beans in a different way, though, back in the day. I mean, it really was beans and water, basically, soybeans and water. Nowadays, sure, it's more processed, but it just tastes better. And I think that, I don't drink soy milk every day or oat milk every day, almond milk every day. But when I'm drinking it, I do like it to not taste like a pile of soybeans blended with water. So should they be should they be internationally banned? No, they should not be literally internationally banned.
Well, I know some people who do think that. Mostly, well, I can't say mostly. Some people say for health reasons. Other people say for environmental reasons, because soy is such a damaging crop.
Soy's tough. Yeah, it's tough. And again, like all the things we're talking about today, I can't say it enough that I recognize that I'm sitting here going, gosh, isn't it wonderful what they can do with soy? As if it's just this magical product that solves all my, food issues and everything. It's not. It causes a lot of problems too. It's like when quinoa was a craze years ago, and then people started talking about farmers in Bolivia losing their lives and livelihood because all of a sudden I discovered quinoa in 1998 or whatever. There's prices to all this, right? There's a price and a cost to all this. There's a price and a cost to sitting here in my studio with the electricity burning so that we can talk about veganism, which is going to save the planet. The irony not lost on me or us. But we also can't just sit around and die. So let's try to minimize the amount of suffering we're engaging in. That should be a general rule while we engage and maximize our own, hedonistic pleasure. And I'm joking, but I mean, realistically, like let's live good, nurturing, fulfilling lives while at the same time doing our best to limit the amount of suffering that our lives cause on other people. Soy, tough crop. I mean, it's got a lot of implications there.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because the more I get involved in the metabolic health community, the more I'm seeing the same concerns on each side of the spectrum, right? So monocrops, wheat, corn, soy, barley, oat, rice. And then we have the factory farms where the animals are processed. And then the people who are trying to change all of that, like the ruminant agriculturalists who are trying to replenish the grasslands and the soil from the damaged monocrops with their cattle, and then the organic farmers over here trying to grow sustainably, organic everything, vegetables, fruit, whatever. And it's like, that's why I'm going to throw out Tony Hampton again. That's why I love having these conversations, because we really all want to just thrive. And none of us want to suffer.
Nope, we don't.
Right? And I really don't think many of us want other people or animals or plants or soil or air or ocean to suffer either.
Nope, we don't.
Right? Yep. And there's not one answer, but I think at this point in my life, I'm at this place where it's like, am I living my prayer? If I want something to change, what am I doing right now that supports that wish, that prayer, that dream, right? And there's compromise everywhere, right? We're on the internet right now. We're loaded with waves of electricity and EMFs and all that stuff. And it's like, I can either paralyze myself with this negative thought or this negative response to reality, or I can transform my response and I can use it for good. I can use it for my platform, if you want to put it that way, but really for my happiness and the happiness of everyone around me, the people I care about, like you are one of the people that I was telling someone the other day, I'm going to interview Greg Bennick. Like, who's that? I'm like, Well, I used to watch him at Seattle Center Folklife Festival when he would juggle by the fountain, and I just thought he was so cool. And then I met him a couple years later at a hardcore show in Ballard. And then I realized who he was. I'm like, that's the juggler from Folklife? He's in a hardcore band? What? This is amazing. And, we're still friends. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of that journey of seeing you evolve, right? And we both have evolved, and we don't hate each other, right?
No,
we
absolutely.
don't diss on each other. Like, I said earlier, I don't ever want to knock vegans because I was one. And just because I found my own enlightenment through a different dietary pattern doesn't mean that I was a dumbass and, oh, I can't believe I was vegan. That was so stupid. Like, no, I don't want to talk like that about myself, nor about anyone else. So, and I'm sure you've had tons of conversations in your travels about, all the interworkings, the crossovers, the layers of existence, right? And I want you to share about that work that you do, about transformation, beyond veganism, about your book and how you travel the world, not just because you're one of those obsessed globetrotters who just wants to go get a magnet to put on your fridge. Like, it's way more than that. Wait, do you have a magnet collection? Because I know you have a coin collection.
I don't. I've got, let's see, I've got a 100 for Haiti magnet over there, and I've got that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us all about this lovely part of yourself.
Yeah, because it's interesting. We focus on veganism quite a bit, and I'm not necessarily I'm not a vegan advocate, meaning that's not what I do, right? This is the first interview about veganism that I've ever done in my life, I think. I mean, it really is. Like, when I've been interviewed, as I have been in the past for many a hardcore punk rock fanzine website, etc., talk about music, touch on veganism, that comes up all the time. But an exclusively vegan interview, I don't recall one. Maybe I'm forgetting one, but it's not really been my focus. I've always been more focused on human interactions more than animal rights. It just has not been my focus, even though animal rights are important and I want animals to be alive and thrive. But, most of what I do is focus on reclaiming our own power, reclaiming our own clarity, and then living with kindness as best we can in a world in which we will fail doing that. We will all fail at being kind all the time. We will all fail at being focused, and we will all fail even at being good to one another. I will, you will, we all will. But, my travel takes me into the world in a couple different ways. I'm, as you mentioned, a coin researcher, coin writer. I write for 4, maybe it's 5 at this point, coin magazines. Did you even know that there are 5 coin magazines? The point is that I'm a regular columnist in multiple coin magazines about coins. That's what I do, right? I go talk to people about coins. I love it. But professionally, what I do, even more so professionally than coins, is I speak to audiences about what is essentially team building, but it's about treating others respectfully and being kind and also uplifting one another in the midst of a world which would take our focus away from doing that. So the book is about exactly that. In a world which would take our focus away from the things that matter most, the people around us, our own happiness and stability, how do we reclaim that? And the reason I called the book Reclaim the Moment was because in this moment, there are forces in play. I alluded to them earlier when I talked about people who sell sugar and processed foods living in giant houses. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's forces at play constantly that want my time and attention and want me to be living a life that profits them rather than one that uplifts and benefits me. So I think that it's really important to reclaim the moment and to build a better now and do that with those around us, not in opposition to other people, but with them as much as we can. So I go out in the world and I speak about that at all sorts of different events. And I also have a whole wing of what I do where I go into schools and speak to kids about kindness. And I book tons of those events nationwide where I do a whole assembly program, teaching kids, talking to kids, listening to kids about kindness. And I explain that it's possible to be kind to people who are different than we are, people who look different, sound different, think different, act differently. We can still work with them and be kind to them. So those are the things that keep me running around the planet and searching for vegan food along the way.
Yeah. So you were saying instead of focusing on going against something or someone like an entity, collaborating with those around you who might have similar values. Can you give an example of either a presentation or experience you've had recently that was really meaningful to you? Maybe you did a lecture or a speech or an activity, because I know you juggle.
I do.
Do
Yep.
you juggle a lot at these speaking engagements, or?
Less and less, quite a bit less than I
Okay.
used to. What I used to do is I used to do a comedy juggling presentation that about 20 years ago, had hints of a message in it. And then all of a sudden the message was more. And now fast forward a whole bunch, make a huge leap. The juggling, the magic or mentalism effects are still in the presentation, but they're new. It's more nuanced. It's not like, please welcome juggler Greg Bennick. It's not that,
Sure.
as a keynote speaker, my job is to communicate a message and to make people feel something, feel empowered or connected. So there's a presentation just, I don't know, a couple months ago. It was in Traverse City, Michigan, and it was for a group of city officials and town officials from around the state of Michigan. And when I say officials, I don't mean the mayor, the president, and the supreme potentate. I'm talking about the dog catcher, the selectmen, the people who societally we don't think as the champions of the world, but they are. Right? At the end of the day, it's not just necessarily the mayor, the governor, or the president that keeps us going through the world. It's the person who's organizing the local election, or the person who's in charge of picking up the garbage on Tuesday, or the person who's keeping the lights on or the water running. That's who this presentation was for. And I tied in a few different messages about the work that I do in Haiti, but also about the importance of looking to the people around you as being vital, connected members of a team. This was the message in Traverse City. And it was a very diverse audience in terms of different levels. And I'm using my hand this way rather than vertically. There was a really interesting cross-section of people there from all different walks of life, and bringing everyone together through story and laughter was a really successful event. And I captured it on video from a couple angles, and have been pretty happy with with just the feedback that I got from it. So I think that moving forward, I want to do more presentations along those lines that include, yes, the juggling, the magic, the laughter, but also stories that speak to the greater mission, which is to bring people together and remind them that they matter and that the work that they do is meaningful. That's really what I'm about.
Yep. That totally resonates with me. And I'm also evolving my art form. I mean, this is a totally new endeavor, this podcast, being a personal trainer, and I'm trying to keep my art in it, but have the message, the weight of the health message be bigger than the entertainment part. And it's challenging to move through that transformation, because I've talked to you many times over the years where you're like, yeah, I'm not really doing that anymore. I'm doing this. But if you really want me to do that, I will, because you have the talent and you have the experience. And I'm running into that as well. This podcast is really important to me. And I think that it can reach a lot of people in ways that can be transformative and empowering and give people a sense of community, right? Because you're bringing people together by showing up physically and doing some sort of presentation or, group team effort thing. And you even gave me a lot of tips many years ago. I was asking your advice on how to do this and how to do that. So I want to thank you for that continued support. And I love that we're both continuing on this journey of, evolution, and like we're rooted in this core value, right? And we're just learning to express it and share it in different ways that are, meaningful to us and meaningful to people around us. So we've been talking, and I want to kind of wrap up, but we have one final question that we like to close with, and it's about metabolic health. And it's totally open to how you answer it. But the question is, what is a magical metabolic tip you would like to offer to our audience today?
Listen to your body. And the reason I say that is because medicine and Western medicine, Eastern medicine, whatever medicine in the middle, is not is not ever going to have all the answers because it might not know the questions. And there are questions that will be generated from you, by you, and for you that a doctor wouldn't know to ask. So listen to your body. And it's not even about the doctors. It's about listen to your body. And if you feel as though you need to be eating this, getting more sleep, thinking more clearly, pay attention to that and then make substantive shifts, even if they're subtle ones that put you in that direction. Because ultimately what I want is for you, literally you or listener, to be happy and to feel better. And if you wait for somebody to say, Amelia, I'm wondering, do you feel okay? You might be waiting a while. And if you're waiting for them to go, do you feel okay? Because I think that maybe between 7 and 8 o'clock at night, it seems that you have a slight dip in your, they're never going to guess that. Listen to your body and pay attention to what's happening in it. It'll lead to better self-care and it'll lead to better care from other people, which in turn then, as we were talking about with the book and the other stuff that I do, I've seen it firsthand. It'll lead to you being a better teammate, partner, spouse, friend, what have you, to the people around you. And that spreads. Inevitably, that spreads. So that's the world I want to live in. Let's listen to our body. Let's listen to ourselves, pay attention, even in the midst of all the clutter around us, and make improvements to our lives as we go.
100% agree. Yep. Yeah. So it's a process. And I want to make sure that people stay in touch with you if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are you a fabulous human, but you also have so much work that you have manifested, collaborated on, and I think people deserve to know about all your work. And so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to share, whether it's a website, a film, a book, go for it.
Amazing. I appreciate that so much. And as you were talking, I thought, I've done about 60 podcasts in the last couple of years, and I've never put any clips of them online. Maybe I should do that. Anyway,
I'll take care of that. I mean, I
So-
appreciate you forwarding it and reposting, but I will do all the legwork.
No, I've never done that. I've never posted any clips. What's wrong with me? Anyway, don't take advice from me on self-promotion, quite obviously. But yeah, gregbennick.com, gregbennick.com. And then if you're so inclined, feel free to check out the book, Reclaim the Moment, 7 Strategies to Build a Better Now. I'd love to hear from any listeners anytime. I'd be happy to hear questions, thoughts, any of the above, any and all of the above.
Great. So if we want to book you for a service, we just go to your website?
Yeah, go to the website. There's a contact form there and you can fill that out. And I'd be more than happy to hear from people. I can point you in the right direction of anything you need, or if you have questions or you're looking for something different, even I could help out. But yeah, gregbennick.com. I'm also, of course, on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Greg Bennick. Feel free to follow and say hi anytime. And thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah. I had a blast, and I feel like we could talk like 3 or 4 or 5 more hours about
Probably.
lots of fabulous things. So thank you for your time, Greg. Thank you for your heart, for your compassion, for your wisdom, for your knowledge, for your motivation, and your commitment to being the best person for yourself and everyone around you. I see that and I feel it, and I appreciate you sharing a piece of you with our audience. I know everybody's really going to love this episode. So
awesome. Thank you so much. This rules.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, this is the magic of metabolic health. This was a good one. Make sure you connect with Greg Bennick, gregbennick.com. And for our listeners who are actively ready to make one baby step in improving their metabolic health, we do promote one product on this podcast, and it's a CGM. It's a continuous glucose monitor, which is a 2-week device. And this is something that I feel is the most accessible, fast piece of information that you can get to better understand your metabolic health in just 2 weeks. And we partner with Lingo, and all you have to do is go to their website and select one lingo device, the CGM. They call it a sensor. And our discount code is Metabolic Magic. It's one word. And also make sure you hit me up because I have a CGM program for folks who are maybe intimidated by slapping a CGM on your arm. I have a 2-week program that helps you navigate that entire process. I have food journals. We share how your blood sugar is going in that 2 weeks. We make micro adjustments to your food, and it's quite powerful as far as understanding your blood sugar and everything else. So check that out. You get 15% off with that discount code. And once again, my name's Amelia. Greg, thank you again. And we are the magic of metabolic health. Thank you for being part of our village, and we'll see you next time.
We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.